At Rubberband, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubberband. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive. And we are live. Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubberband podcast, where I am joined by extra special guest, John Bourke from RecView. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. John Bourke, welcome to the Rubberband podcast. How are you doing?
Mate, I'm very good. I thought that your intro, I listened to a few episodes in preparation for this. I thought your intro must have been pre-recorded, but you just nail it every time. That was smooth.
I don't. I honestly don't. I've had some moments, and there have been moments where I've had to say, "Oh, hang on a sec, I'm going to need to re-record that," and then I forgot to edit that out. So there's a few, interesting things out there in my Rubberband podcast land, but I always figure. If I stuff up or if the guest stuffs up, it's an authentic podcast, and that's to be celebrated, right?
Mate, I couldn't recall we say the same thing for all our candidates for the Rec to Rec Week video interview and send, and we always leave in like things that they got wrong, and we tell candidates it's like you're not going to hang up a phone call on a client or a candidate if you say something wrong and then call them back in 30 seconds. So it kind of just shows that you can roll with the punches, as they say.
Absolutely. And I think, it's our mistakes and our flaws that make us the fabulous humans we are. There is a quote, and I think it's Edith Piaf, but it's if you use your faults and your defects, then you'll be a star, because she was embracing the limitations of her voice to be the incredible singer that she was. So there are things out there. We need to actually embrace the things that aren't, that don't go quite so well, or the things that, don't make us perfect, our imperfections.
That's
anyway.
It, and we've all got a lot of them.
Don't we? Absolutely. Now, mate, you are joining me from the other side of the world. Where are you today?
Yeah, so we're in Krakow in Poland. So mate, it's lovely. It's Europe. I'm looking out the window at like a 2,000-year-old church with snow on the top. So it's very much European winter. We've been down in Greece for the last couple of months, which is where I'm getting my visa, but we've come up to Poland for the winter to visit my partner's family. She's from up here, so we did Chrissy and stuff with them, and then I'm not sure where we'll head after this, but Poland's been awesome. It's been a massive surprise, so we love it here.
Incredible. Did you get a white Christmas?
Yeah, it's global warming's affected that a little bit, I think, because there's been some really nice blue sky days, and it's not meant to be like that. But the last couple of days it's been snowing everywhere, so it's like I'm looking out now and it's just covered completely white snow, which is quite cool coming from Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sweltering in Ballarat today, but
yeah,
keep this on because I'm coming over to Europe in a few weeks. So
oh, nice.
Yes, Europe, please snow, please be beautiful. You always are. But,
yeah, it's funny. Like I never thought I'd love a cold white Christmas, and then you get here and you're like, I understand why like the English and the Irish and the Europeans love a cold Christmas, because it is much more Christmassy.
Right. Well, let's go. I'm talking way too much because I'm enjoying talking to you. So let's talk about you. Let's go into your background. We're talking Poland, we're talking Greece. I see on your LinkedIn there's all sorts of locations. There's London, there's Portugal, there's Sydney. Where are you from, John Bourke? Where did you grow up? Tell me about you.
I'm a Sydney boy, born and bred.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm there, and I've travelled around. But I was in Sydney for my entire life up until about, I think, finished uni at like 22, 23, moved to London for a little bit. Overdid my visa in London, which is why Portugal's on there. Stopped there on the way back, and then was in Sydney for the last 8 years. And I've just moved back over here to sell into the UK market for RecView.
Well, I'm a Sydney boy as well. I'm a Campbelltown boy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. E-Town,
I know.
represent. Yeah.
All right. Where are you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Malabar, which is the next beach along from Maroubra. So a
Yeah, I know
beautiful,
it well.
beautiful part. Yeah, mate.
Oh,
Like
gorgeous.
beautiful part of the world, right? Very lucky. Gadigal land. So loved it there. Could never afford to live there again now. It's funny, like
No.
growing up, it was my parents bought a place there for like a chocolate milk and a string, I think. And and I got paid out in school because it used to be Sewage Works Malabar, and then now it's multi-millionaires with massive houses. So
Right.
yeah, it's
Oh, the
crazy,
Sydney
Sydney.
of our
Yeah.
youth. It's like my dad, he worked for the Rural Bank in the 70s, and he was offered a terrace house in Paddington for $2,000
Yeah.
and said no.
No, ridiculous. $2,000
Right?
for a house. That'd be stupid in Paddington.
I
No,
know.
never heard of
Who
it.
would want
Yeah.
to live in Paddington or Surrey Hills, right? That was
Yeah.
the 70s, and I would have liked that inheritance, Dad. So
100%, mate. Yeah, nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be talking to him still, mate. I'd be holding that grudge. Yeah.
Oh, it's too funny. Well, growing up in Malabar and, being in high school, what were you thinking the future was going to hold for you, John? What were your passions? Did you have an interest in a particular career you wanted to pursue? Who were you at that stage?
Mate, deep questions straight into it. It's
Right.
8:45 here in the morning. So let's go back to high school. I guess probably the truthful answer was no idea. But, if you'd asked me at the time, I wouldn't have wanted to be a rock star, even though I've got no musical talent. Everyone told me that I'd end up in sales. So I'm not sure if that was what led me into sales or if, the personality people were picking was correct. But I didn't really have anything set in high school, really. I worked in, like, my first couple of jobs were like Coles, stacking shelves, and then I went into bars when I was 18. While I was at uni, like, I just picked the degree that everyone does. I just did a commerce degree and then kind of found that I liked business and kind of gravitated towards kind of like a salespeople role where I could kind of just blag it for the first couple of years. I think that's kind of what everyone does. Like, it's like, I could talk a little bit. I like people. I can take people out for lunch. So that's kind of fell into that. And that's been kind of my role for the last decade.
So you finished uni. Did you then move into, I suppose your first serious job? Is that when that came about? And was that in sales and BD?
Mate, ish. So I finished uni. Funnily enough, in my commerce degree, I picked accounting for the major and then, did a semester of that. And shout out to all the accountants. My twin sister's an accountant, but if I had to do that every day, I don't think it'd suit my life. So I moved into marketing, a bit more fluffy. You can blag it a little bit more. And so finished uni with that degree, moved over to London, thought I'd just walk into a job at Saatchi & Saatchi or Ogilvy. Got a rude awakening that, a degree doesn't really mean anything to anybody. So took the first job that came up, which I thought was a marketing job, but it was a job knocking on doors selling charity subscriptions, which I found out the first day when we hopped on a train. I'm like, this is weird. Who leaves the office during the working hours? They don't kind of really tell you what the job was. But did that for a while, was pretty good at it because you're just blagging, and just the way that the visas were back then was like the only job that I could get in the UK that wasn't kind of like a pub job. Similar to Australia, right? Like a company's got to sponsor you if you're going to be there for a little bit. So did that, enjoyed London, enjoyed my time over in Europe. And then when I came back to Sydney, looking for a job, one of my mate's girlfriends, Courtney, they just had a baby as well, was working at a company called S3 recruitment agency, big global one. I had no idea what recruitment was, like most Australians. Rocked up and got I think it was back then, it was like 50K including super annual salary, and started cold calling CTOs that I knew nothing about tech. So that was my journey into recruitment.
Well, so that's interesting. So, you went into the agency, and I'm assuming you went in there because you were registering to, find work. And at some point,
Yeah, like ish. I think so. Back, it actually leads to kind of how I set up starting recruitment. But back then, like most recruitment agencies, a lot of people in the company got internal recruitment fees, right? Like if you've got a friend who we can hire, here's 4, 5, 6 grand. So Courtney did that. She's like, you've done sales, recruitment's the same. Come in and interview for it. So like most people who go and fall into it that way, I knew I was going in for a recruitment interview. I just had no idea what the job entailed. So
right.
I knew that I was going for it, but I had no clue. The people that interviewed me, I don't know, thought that I would be good at it, and a lot of them are still good mates to this day. So it was a really, really good company I worked with. I made a lot of good friends. James, who's the new director of starting recruitment, him and I were on the rookie bank there together. So it's just had no clue what the role would be. So kind of learnt by fire, which, at the time, if you'd asked me, I'm like, this is the worst way to learn. I'm not learning anything. But I think it's done me a service to get me here today.
Totally. Well, Courtney got you there to have that interview originally, and something in that interview, I mean, as you mentioned, I'm assuming leaders said to you, hey, we think you'd be really good at this. What was it that made you say to yourself, hey, I want to give this a crack, actually? I think they're right. I think I could be really good at this. Like, what was it that sold you on the industry at the time?
That's actually a really, really good question, Eden. So I've got philosophy is the wrong word, a bit of like a thought process of what I want to do when it comes to like different businesses or work. And recruitment was kind of the first role that I'd found that was a win-win-win, right? So it was like a net positive, I felt. So even though people slag off recruiters when they don't get a job, essentially a recruitment consultant gets someone a job whilst they're also getting paid well if they're doing a good job. The company finds a staff member, so there's no kind of loss there, right? You've obviously got to deal with rejection and let people know that they haven't got the job, but that's not really your fault because you're not the one pulling the trigger on the decision, right? In an agency anyway, right? So I really liked that aspect of it, that it was just a net positive, right? There wasn't any things to, any like issues around, am I making a bad impact in the world? It was all just positive. So that's kind of what I saw in it when I'm just like, hey, I'm just speaking to people. I get them a job. I get paid well. The company that I place them in is happy. If I work with good clients, which is obviously the thing that you need to focus on, the candidate's also going to be happy, right? Like if I prioritize only working with good companies, then everyone that I'm placing has a good experience. So that's kind of what I liked it. I'm like, it's sales, but no one really loses out too much, especially coming from like selling charity subscriptions, which I just did not agree with ethically whatsoever. But I was 22 and needed to pay rent in London. Not that it was dodgy, if charities spend their money how they choose to. I just didn't love knocking on people's doors, right? Which a lot of people who have done that role don't. That's why it's not much of a career. So when I found recruitment, I'm like, oh, this is something that I can potentially see myself sticking with for a while.
Well, I love that. I mean, at the core, and I think we do spend too much time, in terms of the stress, the anxiety around the rejection for the candidates. And I think having that positive mindset that you have, because someone does win at the end of the day, you do produce a result for someone that is life-changing. And it's also, keeping the client happy and satisfied. And there's a lot of positivity in what we do. Yeah. But we focus a lot on the heartbreak or the razor blades.
And I think people focus too much on like the whole entire world and what you can do to help everybody, and then for that reason they don't help anybody, right? So even if you look at a recruiter's average career, and if they place a couple of 100 people, that's still a couple hundred people that you've helped on with their career, right? As an individual, unless you're a Greta Thunberg, you're not going to be able to have that much of an impact. Like some people can, but there's still a lot that can be said about helping the people immediately in your vicinity. So that's kind of what I like about recruitment. But I was back in Sydney in May for one of my mate's weddings, actually, and I caught up with a guy that I placed like 2.5, 3 years ago. He's a UK lad, like it needed the visa, and he's done very, very well in recruitment. And it was nice. He's just, we went out for beers. He's like, mate, thanks for getting me into it. I'm like, mate, I sent you across a video interview that the past 4 years on you, right? Like I've done nothing here. You've done it all. But it's still nice because people do remember that, especially for the recruitment that we do, which is placing salespeople into their first recruitment role. It can have a really big positive impact on people who, like myself, probably didn't have heaps of direction with what they wanted to do, but were good at talking to people. Like a lot of people that we place are from, and this used to be the tagline, but we had to go a bit more professional, from like shitty sales jobs, right? So
Right.
you can edit that out if needs be, if we can't swear on this. But
right.
you know,
No, you can say that word.
call centers, knocking on doors, things like that, and then they go into recruitment, and it's like, oh, I get a card to take clients out for lunch. Oh, you know, people are a bit annoyed that I'm calling them, but they still want to hear about the job. Oh, okay, my recruitment fee is not like $200, it's like 20 grand, and I'm working with, you know, senior people or whatever it is, right? There's just, I think it's a much better role than a lot of sales roles out there.
Oh, it's way
younger
better,
people,
right?
Yeah.
And you have changed lives, like in you know, the lad that you talk about there. I mean, you sparked his curiosity about a career that most of us never really considered. I mean, let's face it, we all got into recruitment because someone said, hey, I think you should give this a crack because I've done it and I think it's cool and I think it would suit you, or whatever. Like we don't really know what it is until someone does that.
It's actually funny speaking to you about a city boy as well. Like most of these that you do are with, now, like I'm speaking to people in the UK. A lot of people in the UK and the States kind of know what recruitment is, or like, especially in the States, they want to go into it from uni. I did not hear of recruitment until I was sitting in a recruitment agency. Right. When I went to London, I regret it because I took the job that was knocking on doors, but I sat with like an agency called Pareto, and I'm just like, cool, is this like the job interview? And then they had me doing like building spaceships with other team members as one of those group assessment days. And I'm just like, what the hell is this? Luckily, they don't do those group assessment days that much in Australia. But I had no clue because we don't hear of it in Australia. Yeah. It's not like a job that you know about, and then you go into it and you're like, it employs 90,000 people in Australia. There's 40,000 recruitment agencies in the UK, and you're like, this massive industry. And even when you tell like your parents or friends or different things, they're like, what you get paid for placing people, because they're not in that world, right?
I know they don't get like, know, my family have no idea what I do, no matter how much I explain it to them, right?
Yeah.
Wild, right? Even silly job doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You chat to people. Good on you, mate. Like, cheers.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I'm really keen to talk to you about RecView in a moment, but I would just love to know, prior to that, what have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned over the course of your career, John?
Oh, mate, big question. Lots. I think, especially last year and COVID, and this is kind of the one that I tell a lot of rookies that we place for starting recruitment, different business, is that just time in the game outweighs everything, right? I can see that both for my career, but also people that I've worked with, especially the only advice I can ever give people is on recruitment, because it's all I know. So don't take this into any other aspects of your life, because it might not be right. But, I've seen people who probably started in recruitment who weren't naturally amazing at it. I was a shocking tech recruiter. But it's the one role I feel like where if you spend a lot of time, do the right things, you will build a good career, right? Like it's just inevitable. Like, how many people have you sat with who are still in the game like 10 years later and they're all doing really, really well? It's very rare that you get someone who, isn't at least doing okay if they've been in it. So that's probably like the biggest lesson, which is just time in the game, which I've then taken to RecView, right? Like, building a software company is a whole different beast from building a recruitment company, which I didn't know at the time. Ignorance is bliss is probably another good lesson, right? Recruitment company, set up an ABN, you interview some people, you send some terms of business, and you invoice someone for 15 grand, right? At its core, obviously, then you expand that, and we've done that with starting recruitment around like branding, psychometric testing, video interviews, and things like that. But a software business, you invest a lot more upfront for down the line, right? And you sign a big customer in a software business, and it's $600 a month, $1,000 a month, $1,500. It's very small. It's obviously you pay per seat, but it's recurring revenue, right? So I've taken a lot of that, and I think probably the biggest thing or biggest bit of advice is just sticking with something, and kind of like, yeah, sticking with something would be the biggest bit of advice, and kind of knowing that the outcome will be okay.
Yeah, I agree. And so you've got, I keep saying I want to talk about RecView because I really do, but you've got two businesses. You've got one that is a rec to rec agency. Is that right? Is that where Start in Recruitment?
Yeah. So starting recruitment's a rec to rec. We don't love that term. We prefer rookie to rec. So we place salespeople into their first recruitment role, right? So that's 7 years old now. We've placed a lot of people over the years, and then we recently launched, not recently, like 2 years ago, Start in Australia, which relocates UK recruiters to Australia. But there's a whole team who do that. So James and Steve run the Sydney office. We've got Claudia who does the relocation piece, and I'm full-time on RecView now, which has been interesting. I still speak to the team every single day, and I still do the odd interview for like a senior candidate from the UK moving over. But technically, I'm full-time on RecView.
Okay, RecView. Well, let's talk RecView. So every innovation starts with an idea. There was that spark that you went, you know what? I've got an idea here and I'm going to play with it. What was the idea?
I wish I could say that I had like a spark or an idea. I more had, I don't know, a frustration. I was using video products that were just quite outdated and super expensive from the UK, which was fine when it was just me running Starting Recruitment. The one I was using, I had a really good rec-to-rec deal, and it was still costing me like $270 a month, and essentially just let you record. And to be fair, this was 5-6 years ago when video infrastructure was a lot more expensive. You had to have bigger servers. You didn't stream things back. You had to buffer it. But then when I scaled the team, it got just ridiculously expensive. So I'm like, we'll just build our own version, because essentially we were using it to record candidate interviews, like very similar to this setup, right? We'd then send that to clients. Because of the nature of what we do, all our clients were like, what's this? Right. So again, I'd love to say it was a genius idea, but our clients were like, what product are you using now? So then we went back and built it properly as a completely white labeled solution, so that, other people could use it, but also so that it wasn't on, I won't drop any names, but so it wasn't on a SaaS company's branding or links or things like that. It was all completely white labeled. So that was probably where it came from, just out of frustration to the pricing. Like, I don't think video products should be more expensive than your CRM. I hate the UK model of locking people in for 2 years, just because I've signed up so many 2-year products and then they don't do anything for 2 years. So our whole thing was always like, it's relatively cheap. It was cheaper than your CRM. We do a lot more, and it's a month-to-month contract, right? So my philosophy has always been like, if it's not good, you can cancel, which then in turn means that we need to make sure that the product's good. So it's kind of like a mutual trust with whoever's using the product that we're going to keep doing well. And if we keep doing well, the mutual trust is that they will continue paying us money for that.
Fabulous. Well, let's talk about, let's say I have an agency recruitment team, or I'm running a TA function, which I am now. Either scenario. It's described. RecView is described as video AI, which has obviously piqued my curiosity. I love seeing Australian tech doing really well and launching into
cool,
an international market. It excites me. So if I am that TA leader or leading a recruitment team, what problem is it solving for me? What does it do? What does video AI mean? What is RecView? And how is it going to change my world?
So depending on who's using it, agency or TA, obviously different pain points that you're solving, right? So we really think that the product is more of an agency recruitment product. So one thing that we really wanted to focus on when we were building this wasn't having a product that, hey, we can hit this total addressable market, right? It's like, hey, we want to solve a problem for recruitment agencies. It's my background. It's what I know. There's heaps of good tech out there for talent acquisition teams, right? Because it's more of a B2B market than recruitment agencies that are often independently owned, have high turnover, don't always necessarily have money coming in when the market tanks. So bigger organizations don't target that market as much, and it's a market that I love, right? So it's what we wanted to hit. So we do have a few TA teams using it, but I'll focus on the agency space because that's where people get more value, right? So the video AI comes from, the product started as a video product. So, you've got your video links that are completely branded up to the agency, unlimited video links. Recruiters could record videos exactly like we're doing now, and then send that to their clients. But rather than just sending links, all of our agencies are able to create white labeled portals for their clients, right? So if I'm sending, let's say Starting Recruitment was sending a recruiter to Movember, you would get an email, no links, GIF in there with a video interview of the candidate that I'd found for you. You log in, it's got all your details. So it's a bit more of a nicer feeling, especially in today's day and age where people aren't allowed to click links at work if the link looks slightly dodgy. So it being on the same domain definitely helps that that part of the process. So that's kind of where that was the core product, right? That was 2 years ago. Since then, we've released like a Chrome extension for BD, so very similar to Loom, but we've got our own booking links in there so that candidates and clients can book in times directly on that video. But then most importantly, what we've done over the last 6 months is, and I think you mentioned it before about using AI transcription, is built in on top of that. So all the videos that you're already doing is transcribing them, and then most importantly, pushing them back into recruitment agency CRM. So like the likes of Fathom and Otter, they all integrate with HubSpot, but no one integrates with JobAdder because again, it's a smaller market that no one does. So that was kind of our big priority, and it's about bringing these tools that have existed for SaaS salespeople and bringing them into the recruitment world, but integrating them with the system, right? Because when you're a small team or 2 or 3 people, it doesn't matter if it doesn't integrate. But when you've got, like, say for example, Talent, who are one of our big customers, and they've got like 100 recruiters or something like that, they want all that information back in Bullhorn, right? Otherwise it's pointless for them. So they don't want to be copying that. So it means that any bookings that are made get pushed back into Bullhorn. All the transcriptions the candidate knows get pushed back into Bullhorn or JobAdder, Vincere or Loxo, so that data is constantly updating based on what your recruiters are doing anyway. So that's kind of like the key differences that we really focus on agency recruitment. And because we've got that kind of lens on what we're doing, it means that all the product development is around that. So, if you've got a candidate call, it's capturing the candidate skills and updating that. Whereas if it's a client call, we're capturing different things and letting you write, job descriptions, and just really tailoring what the AI models can do to agency recruitment.
Yeah, and you see, I can see this from an internal perspective, and I know that's not your core market, but I use MetaView to transcribe my phone interviews that I do, and then I provide that summary to my hiring managers with recommendations. But I see what you're doing with RecView is taking that to the next level because they can actually watch the video content. You know what I mean? Like they're logging in and they can actually, they can feel the values alignment or the cultural alignment or the passion for what we do at Movember, etc. That you can't necessarily see in written form. And that's why I see it taking it to that whole next level. And for me, that's really exciting. And, I know I'm internal, but
that's kind of why I say like a lot. Yeah, mate, like a lot of internal, we can chat after. But a lot of the people who are using it from an internal perspective are using it to give their hiring managers that interview, or, they might record 20 minutes of it. And yes, a hiring manager can then read over those notes while they're watching it and skip to the right part and things like that. The reason that we've, again, focused on agency is it allows agency recruiters to offer a better service and to productize their service to their clients, right? If you're competing with a recruiter who, even let's say you've got one recruiter that's charging 15% and they're just flicking across CVs, or you've got a recruiter who's charging 20%, but it's exclusive, that and harder things to sell, but they're providing you with the first round video interview of all the candidates. So then your shortlist is just 5 20-minute interviews of that candidate, why they want to work for your business. People are going to go for that, right? Because it's doing their first part of their job, and it's making the internal recruiter or your life easier. We will kind of steer more into that talent acquisition market as we go, but it's really about first making a solid product for agency recruiters.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I've worked in agency for a number of years myself, and you want to be providing something that I suppose is surprising and delighting your clients, and that's taking it to the next level. So the last thing you want your client to be doing the same thing, right? So I get that. There's a bit of a tug of war there.
If we had TAs who want to use us, like by all means, the product's there, and we love that. Just the core philosophy of it was, and what happens a lot in rec tech is people start on agency because it's easy to sign up smaller teams, right? It's their whole budget, they control it. And then they go up market to internal teams because, they've got bigger budgets. And then because it's a different role, right? Agency to internal is different. Like part of it's the same, but an agency recruiter needs to spend a lot more time doing business development, right? So a lot of those tools then aren't purpose built for talent acquisition. So it's just a belief that we stuck with. We'll start with agency, and then, if talent acquisition teams use it, they use it. So that's kind of where we've sat, and it's working well. Like the TA teams that use us love it, and a lot of them use it for things that you wouldn't think talent acquisition teams would use for. Like a lot of using for the video outreach, booking links, so that they can, let's say you've got a role on for November, record, hey, we've got the digital marketing manager role, record a bit of a video on it, use our AI to add captions and fun things that you do these days, and then posting that into their job ad or emails or sequences and things like that, so that candidates can book in directly. So it does work for both. It's just that's kind of the market that we've been focusing on.
Well, that's okay, because the rubber band community is probably about 50-50. So you've got plenty of agency listeners out there. But I'm going to put you on the spot. I promise I will edit it out if you say no. Is there any kind of trial that our rubber band community could tap into and to check it out?
Mate, 100%. I don't have one yet, but we can definitely come with one. We give and we can make a special one for the rubber band community, but everyone can have a trial is a big thing as well. Again, basically I've priced it and built it around what I haven't liked buying every bit of rec tech under the sun over the last 8 years, right? So we do a 2-week trial, no credit card, make sure it works for your business. We jump on if it's UK, I jump on if it's Australia, Jimmy jumps on, we do training with the team, because it's the hard thing with recruiters is, the owner wants to use something and they see the value in it and they're like, hey, this would be awesome. Getting a recruiter to shift their ways is sometimes challenging. And for that reason, you can also just have a few of your team members on the product. So let's say, you've got 15, but only 4 are white collar recruiters who want to use video. You don't need to pay 15 licenses. You just pay 4. It's all month to month. So we've made it very fair, which I think probably is the Australian influence there.
Yeah, well, free trial out there, rubber band community listeners and members. How do they reach out to you, John?
You can jump on the website or drop me an email at john@recview.co. I'll send you that after, and I'll put a little promo code together for rubber band listeners as well if they want to test it out.
Listeners, get in there, check it out. What's the harm? Check it out. It sounds cool to me. It's taking what I do to the next level. So I'm curious.
I think, especially if people are using a MetaView or a Fathom, MetaView is great. We use some of the same bot infrastructure, so you can add our bots to your Zoom and Microsoft Teams calls and things like that. It's just we capture different information if it's a client or a candidate. Same thing as the MetaView, because they're a TA team, they might not. But we capture leads that a candidate might mention, which isn't that specific for a TA team, but for agency recruitment, it's awesome. It's the air we breathe, right? Leads. So we capture that and then give you a list of those leads after the call. And then, like you said, being able to send the video interviews to clients is just a good USP for recruiters out there, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Love it. Well, congratulations, John. It sounds like amazing technology and celebrating here with you because, like I said, I love seeing Aussie tech on a world stage. So thank you so much for joining me. I know it's very early in the morning and my stomach is rumbling. So we're going to have to... we're going to have to wind it up. I could talk for ages, but I can't wait to see it in action. Really appreciate your support for the rubber band community. You're an absolute
love what you're doing.
legend. So congratulations again, and thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Eden, and I'll chat to you soon.
You will do. Thanks, mate.